Hey everybody, this is Praxis, and in this video I'm talking about how to survive the Trump tariffs, the economic collapse, and why in a situation where millions of people are losing trillions of dollars, every single one of my investments has actually gone up recently. Trump's tariff war with the world and the resulting economic contraction here in the United States has been publicized all over the news recently, and it's really the talk of the town. I think to some degree that's really foolish because there are a lot of more important, longer-term, bigger issues that we're really facing as a society, and I think that this current situation really only serves as a distraction from a lot of those issues. And additionally, I think that a lot of the fixation that we're seeing in the media on this topic is both foolish and disingenuous because most of what we're seeing here, I believe, is negotiating tactics. That concept of swinging high and hitting low, where you make huge, monumental threats and demands with the idea that you're going to be stepping back from that later and accepting kind of a deal sort of in the middle. So I think that there is a fair bit of disingenuity on the part of the media where they are reacting as though they think that what is being said is meant in a literal sense, where it's pretty obvious that this is bluster, trying to get something else. But insofar as this is an event that we are all living through, I wanted to talk specifically about what I see happening at this point and why I have been able to position myself in a place where, like I said in the intro, in a world where millions of people are losing trillions of dollars, all of the investments that I have put my wealth into over the past several years have actually gone up in value over the past several days. So the events that we have been witnessing unfolding over the past several days and weeks haven't been hurting my bottom line, but actually helping it. But before I talk about the different things that I've been doing with my wealth in order to make it so that my assets have actually been expanding in value over the past several days and weeks, what I want to focus on right now is one word, and that word is sustainability. Now, there are all different types of sustainability in our world. There is geopolitical sustainability, there is economic sustainability, there's environmental sustainability, there is social sustainability. All of these different aspects of sustainability work within our culture. And if you live in a society that is sustainable in terms of its geopolitics, or is sustainable in terms of its environmental situation, or is sustainable in terms of its economic situation, you live in a stable society that can continue forward in the future much in the same way as it has in the past. Now, one example of sustainability is environmental sustainability. That's a type of sustainability that you oftentimes heard talked about in our society in terms of whether a practice is sustainable or whether it's unsustainable. I have, for a long time, been a proponent of the idea of environmental sustainability. But one of the pushbacks that people like myself tend to get from the rest of the world is that, well, environmental sustainability sounds nice. It's kind of pie in the sky because there are a lot of trade-offs. You can either be environmentally sustainable or you can have a functioning economy, is oftentimes what people will say. If we want to be environmentally sustainable, we are going to have to do that at the sacrifice of our economy. We are going to, lose jobs, is what people usually say. And whether that's correct or incorrect, and oftentimes it is incorrect that it's a zero-sum game when it comes to environmental quality and people having employment, there's always that sense that sustainability is something that's discretionary. We can either choose to be sustainable or we can choose to be unsustainable. But the reality is, if you are sustainable, that's something that can continue ad infinitum out into the future. But if you're unsustainable, that system at some point has to end. And it can either end in a way that is controlled by the people within that society, sort of a soft landing, so to speak, or it can end in a fiery, explosive crash that is completely uncontrolled by people because people were never willing to give up anything in order to negotiate their way back down to the ground in a sustainable manner. And that is the type of sustainability that we're playing with when we're talking about Trump's tariff war with much of the rest of the world. Now, just like environmental sustainability, economic sustainability gives people the same two choices. You can either be sustainable in a system that can continue on stably into the future, or you can choose to have a system that is economically unsustainable, which eventually, just as is the case with environmental sustainability or geopolitical sustainability, eventually needs to come to an end, and just like environmental sustainability, that end process can either be done in some kind of a controlled way, where people negotiate with what they would like the world to be like, and then the reality of what it is like, to slowly bring that plane down to the ground versus having a massive and spectacular crash. In terms of how human beings tend to navigate the question between sustainability and unsustainability when it comes to economics, usually human beings tend to choose unsustainable economic models, which tend to lead towards societal collapse, economic collapse at some point, or at the very least, contraction. Now, the situation that we're looking at right now, a lot of people are saying, well, was this situation caused by Trump? And the short answer to that, the misleading answer to that, is yes, this situation was caused by Trump. But only insofar as the following situation might also have been caused by Trump. Imagine you have some kind of a vehicle up at the top of the hill. People are rolling that vehicle down the hill, and it is bumping down a road towards a cliff. It's an unsustainable situation that vehicle is in. It might be a great ride. You're getting a lot of speed going down that cliff as you're doing it. You get the wind in your hair. A lot of people may be enjoying it, but at the end of that road, there is a cliff, and everyone pretty much knows there's a cliff. Jumping out of this analogy back into real life, the idea that we're running up trillions and trillions upon trillions of dollars of deficit here in the United States, the idea that every single year, I believe just the debt itself is somewhere around $1 trillion. There's no one around that could suggest plausibly that that is a sustainable economic system. That system not being sustainable by definition has to end at some point, either in a controlled way or in a way that's a spectacular fiery crash. Now, getting back to our analogy of the truck rolling down the hill, Trump did not push the truck down the hill. Trump has not hit the accelerator of the truck going down the hill, but he is now at the steering wheel of this truck, and it is flying down the hill. And what Trump has essentially done over the past couple days is he has taken that truck and he is twisting the steering wheel, and the truck at this point is starting to go off the road. It's starting to hit some bumps. It's starting to scrape up against the rock face on the side. And what was a really nice, exciting ride for a lot of people is now really uncomfortable. People are having a problem with it. It's bumpy. People are getting injured, and there's damage happening on the machine. So people are blaming Trump for the damage that is occurring on that vehicle. The alternative, of course, in an unsustainable system is for people not to do anything and allow the system to just fly off of the cliff and end in a fiery, spectacular explosion. And that is a situation that we're looking at right now. So are the current pains that we are experiencing caused by Trump? Yes, they are caused by Trump, but oftentimes when people will point fingers at someone that's caused a problem, they might point at the downsides of the decision that person has made and say, well, if you hadn't done this, X, Y, and Z wouldn't have happened. And it may be true that X, Y, and Z wouldn't have happened, but what people oftentimes don't mention is that if X, Y, and Z didn't happen, a whole bunch of things that may very well and probably would have been, in this case, much, 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 much worse, were avoided. So did Trump cause the current situation that we're in? Yes, but the alternative may have been and probably would have been in the future much, much worse. Instead of our future descendants having to suffer extremely, perhaps the people alive today are able to suffer, but suffer less so than people in the future would have if we hadn't wrenched the car off the road. When you're talking about economic sustainability, usually for society, you are choosing between two things: economic contraction or continued addiction to whatever is unsustainable. And if you stay on this road, on the economically unsustainable side of continued addiction, the consequences tend to get worse and worse and worse and worse over time, leading to, at some point, a completely uncontrolled plummeting off of a cliff that may very well have been much worse than taking your beating early. And that's what we're experiencing right now. We are taking a beating. This is something that Trump could have avoided, but the alternative in the future was unavoidable, because an unsustainable system, whether environmental, economic, or geopolitical, by its very definition, can't go on forever and has to end. The only thing that we have discretion over is how it ends. Will it end in a way where we control that slow descent in a way that is uncomfortable for us, but survivable, or are we going to just let it go and go and go until we are completely out of control and allow the system to crash? Usually we choose the latter, and the fact that Trump has chosen the former, the idea of invoking an economic contraction for a particular end that may be better than the completely uncontrolled end that would be waiting for you, guaranteed at the end of the road either way. So Trump has chosen the option that on the upside gives us more control, but on the downside means we have to start the suffering now instead of kicking it further into the future. Okay, so that is a situation that we've been facing. And now I want to talk about the types of investments that I've been making over the past several years and why they're doing so well right now. And the reason that they're doing so well right now is that my decision-making process in terms of making those investments was always based on the idea of sustainability versus unsustainability. An unsustainable system, and we know that we are in an unsustainable system. An unsustainable system always only gives you two options. Again, whether it's geopolitical, economic, or environmental, an unsustainable system either results in contraction, uncomfortable contraction until you can get down to sustainable levels, or if you do nothing about it at all, a complete uncontrolled collapse at the end. Those are always the two options that you have: contraction or collapse. And because those are the two inevitable options of an unsustainable system, which it's very clear that we are in, I think it's inarguable that our system is unsustainable, because that was so clear, the types of investments that I have made are all things that I knew would do well during contraction or collapse. So what are some of the things that I've invested my wealth in over the past several years that have been going up and up and up in value, even including over the past several weeks? Well, one of those things is precious metals, silver and gold. Those are things that I do store some of my wealth in, and they have exploded in value over the past several years. In particular, gold has tripled over maybe perhaps the past decade or so, maybe not quite tripled, but has done very, very well where a lot of other investments haven't done so well. Precious metals are a way of preserving your wealth into a form that can serve you in a couple of ways. And before I go any further into this, I'm going to say none of this is financial advice. Just because I've been super successful with this stuff in the past doesn't mean that these same types of investments will be successful in the future. And I would suggest, hopefully, we get to a point in the future where these investments aren't going to do so well, because most of these investments do well during difficult economic times. And once we get to the other side of a lot of these difficult economic times, a lot of the things I'm talking about in this video would not be the best investments to make. So none of this is financial advice. This is just things that I've done that happen to have worked really well for me. Metals, getting back to metals, they perform well for you in a number of ways. One, they are very good at just kind of preserving wealth. It's not a way of making your wealth explode, although over the past several years, the price of gold in particular has really gone up. But the buying power has remained relatively the same. What I could buy with an ounce of gold 10 or 20 years ago, I can buy about that same amount of stuff with gold today. In terms of trading it for dollars, I could get an awful lot more dollars today, but in terms of the actual tangible stuff, the gold has preserved my ability to purchase things from the past through into the future. The same type of situation with silver. Another type of thing that I've put my wealth into recently is physical cash, just having cash on hand. And that might seem a little bit silly because I just mentioned that the buying power of the dollar has gone down against gold. But in terms of the stability of just having dollars versus a lot of these other financial types of investments that you could get into, like different stocks that have precipitously crashed, that may be very overvalued, having your money in just paper currency, at least for the time being, has worked out really well for me. Additionally, having some just cash on hand is good for emergencies. So I've always felt it was a good idea to just have some amount of my wealth in cash so that it could ride out various types of emergency situations. And over the past several years, having money in cash has worked out very much better than some of the different investments that I could have been making. And certainly over the past week or so, cash was definitely the place to be. Now, everything I've talked about so far is the type of stuff that doesn't necessarily have any intrinsic value. Certainly cash doesn't have any intrinsic value. Gold and silver have some degree of intrinsic value. They can be used in technology and in medical types of things. But primarily their value comes as a store of wealth. Other things that I wanted to talk about that have really worked out very, very well for me over the past couple of years is just having stuff. And what I mean by that is things like food, land, tools, building supplies, things of that nature. A lot of this stuff I've bought over the years, and I will, stockpile or hoard or wisely invest, depending on how you want to look at it, in various types of things. Boxes of screws, boxes of nails, different tools that I have, certainly food that I have. All of these things have gone up in their value against the dollar. It takes more and more dollars to buy, the same amount of copper wiring than it did, several years ago. So if I maybe 5 years ago bought, 100 yards of some type of copper wiring, and then I wanted to sell that same amount of wire today, I could get somewhere between double to triple what I spent on it earlier. Now, when you start buying stuff, it gets a little bit tricky because, how much stuff do you want to be burdened with? So what I focused on is the type of stuff that I'm going to be using myself anyway. Food is a great example of that, because even if you never end up selling your food in the future to make a profit, I mean, who would even think of doing that? Well, I guess grocery stores do that. But even if you don't buy something low to sell high, if you're buying something like food, you know that you're going to be able to use it for yourself later. You're going to be able to eat that. I do a lot of construction, so things like nails, I know that I'm going to be able to use them later. So buying that stuff as early as possible, if you know that, or if you have a sense that the currency is going to be going down and down and down, and the value of stuff is going to be going up and up and up. This is another way of investing in things so that when you need those things, you are kind of being able to buy them at prices that were much lower in the past because you had the foresight to buy them earlier when they didn't cost as much. Another thing that falls into this category is any type of supplies that you might use in your life, whether it's emergency supplies or medical supplies, medicines, things of that nature, especially medicines that have a long shelf life, because if you have a medicine that doesn't have a very long shelf life, it's going to go from whatever its value is down to zero after a series of years. Not every medicine is good forever, past its expiration date. Some of them seem to be, some of them are, and other ones definitely aren't. So you have to be kind of smart and wise about what you invest in. But if there are the types of things that you very well may get use out of in the future, buying things when there's not an emergency. Here's an example, N95 masks. That is something you can buy very cheaply now. If there is another pandemic of any sort, whether it's a not particularly dangerous pandemic like what we saw recently, or a very dangerous pandemic, pre-buying emergency supplies like N95 masks it can either save you a lot of money in the future because you bought them low and you use them when they would have been a lot more expensive to buy, or if you want to be like one of those guys or one of those gals, you can buy them low and then sell them high. I had a lot of people that were interested in buying N95 masks from me during COVID, and they were willing to pay 20 times what I bought them for. I gave away a few, but mostly I just didn't sell any of them because I didn't want to be that guy, and I wasn't sure how long things would last, and I'd rather have stuff than money most of the time. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about that can be a great investment of wealth, and it certainly has worked out well for myself, is real estate, land or land with like a house on it. That is something that, unless it gets burned down or something along those lines, it will never go down to zero. So as long as you're not buying something that is overvalued, and I'll give you an example of something that's overvalued, beachfront property in an area that's likely to get hit by future hurricanes that are more powerful than what people are accustomed to seeing, that would be probably overvalued property, because you're probably going to be paying an awful lot for that because people value and esteem that type of property, but it could easily lose a lot of its value. So buying properties that are not overvalued, something that where you feel like you're kind of getting a deal on it, and especially if it's property that you are going to be able to use yourself, either for harvesting timber. That's another way of creating an investment where you're buying land that has trees on it. You can turn those trees into firewood for yourself. Here at our place, we do all of our heating every year with maybe around 2 cords of firewood, which if I were to go out and buy that, it'd be probably about $500 or so. That's right, $500 to heat my house for the entire year. But it's even better than that because it's free for me. All I have to do is go out into the woods with a chainsaw, which is battery operated and runs off of my solar panels. So I don't even have to buy fuel for it. And I can create all my own fuel for free. So whenever you're purchasing something that can work for you in the future, that is another great investment, whether it's a solar panel or some property that grows trees. All these types of things have been great investments for me, and over the years they have kept giving me residuals. Right now it's a moderately sunny day and it's 100% solar power today, and every single day I'm getting those residuals, those residual checks from my solar panels. Same thing with the firewood in my woods or my garden or any of that type of stuff that I can invest in. I can invest in it at a low amount of money and it's going to give me return year after year. So those are the things that I have been putting my money into over the past several years, and it's worked out really well for me. Again, this isn't financial advice for anybody, and in the future, many of these things, I guarantee you, are not going to be great financial instruments. But whenever you're in a situation that is unsustainable, I think it's always a safe bet to bet on either contraction down to sustainable levels or violent and explosive collapse. And if you plan your investments for one of those outcomes being the future, I think it's usually a pretty safe bet. Again, not financial advice, but it's worked pretty well for this guy. That's it. I hope you found this video helpful, and thanks for watching. Please subscribe for new videos all the time, and if you'd like to support this channel, you can do so either through Patreon or PayPal.